In a small village called Jaffer, life was tough for Janet, a young woman who was just out of secondary school. She lived with her widowed mother and two younger siblings in a tiny rundown house. As the oldest child, Janet carried the responsibility of taking care of her family, and it wasn't easy. Her mother, already in her old age, could no longer work, so everyone depended on Janet for survival. Each day, Janet woke up before the sun rose and went from house to house in the village, offering to work on people's farms. She did whatever she could to make a little money to buy food for her family. Her hands were rough from tilling the land, and her back ached from bending over all day, but she kept going. She had no other choice. Even though she had finished secondary school, there was no money for her to further her education, so she accepted her reality and worked hard without complaining. But Janet couldn't help but notice that some of her classmates had left the village. They had gone to the city either to continue their education or to learn skills and find better opportunities. Janet sometimes dreamed of a better life too, but she couldn't see how it was possible. The city felt like a world away, and she had no one there to guide her or help her. Then one day, a familiar face returned to the village. Mary, one of Janet's old classmates, came back in style. Mary arrived in a flashy sports car, dressed in fine clothes and wearing expensive jewelry. Her skin glowed, her hair was shiny, and she looked nothing like the simple village girl she used to be. People gathered around to stare as Mary stepped out of her car. She was the talk of the town, and it wasn't long before parents started using her as an example for their children. Is she not your mate? How many heads does she have? They would say, looking at their own children with disappointment. They admired Mary's success and couldn't understand why their own kids couldn't do the same. Janet's mother was no different. She often compared Janet to Mary, scolding her for being stuck in the village. Look at Mary. She left the village and now she's living well. Why can't you be like her? Her mother would say, frowning at Janet. It hurt to hear these words, but Janet stayed quiet. She was doing her best, and she hoped her mother would understand that someday. As the days passed, Janet's mother's complaints grew louder. She began pressuring Janet to follow Mary to the city, insisting it was the only way to have a better life and support the family properly. You're our only hope, Janet, her mother would say. You must go to the city and find a way to make money. Think of your siblings, think of me. At first, Janet refused. The idea of leaving everything she knew behind to go to a big city was terrifying. She had no one in the city, no family to turn to if things went wrong. She told her mother that the city wasn't for her, that she was afraid of the unknown. But her mother didn't care. She was set on the idea of Janet going to the city, and her frustration started turning into anger. Soon Janet began to feel like nothing she did was ever good enough. Her mother's attitude toward her changed completely. She started making hurtful comments, saying that all of Janet's hard work was useless and that she was wasting her life in the village. Every sacrifice Janet made for her family felt like it was being thrown back in her face. Janet felt torn. She didn't want to leave her family behind, but the constant pressure and criticism from her mother wore her down. She felt like she had no other choice. After a lot of sleepless nights and tears, Janet finally agreed to go to the city with Mary, hoping that maybe, just maybe, things would work out. The day Janet left her village, her heart felt heavy. She packed a small bag with her clothes and a few keepsakes. then hugged her younger siblings tightly. Her mother, finally pleased with Janet's decision, smiled and blessed her, urging her to work hard and bring honor to the family. But deep down, Janet still felt uneasy about leaving her home and everything she knew. When Mary pulled up to take Janet to the city with her, she looked every bit the city girl, dressed in glamorous clothes, her hair perfectly styled. Mary welcomed Janet with open arms, excited to take her along. She didn't say much about the kind of work she did in the city, but she promised Janet a better life. "Don't worry, you'll be fine," Mary assured her. "Just trust me, Janet." The journey was long, and as they left the dusty roads of the village behind, Janet's anxiety grew. She tried to imagine what her life would be like in the city, but it felt like imagining another world. She had only heard stories about the city, bright lights, tall buildings, and a fast-paced life. It was hard to picture herself there, but now it was becoming a reality. When they finally arrived, Janet was in awe. She had never seen buildings so tall, roads so busy, or lights so bright. Everything seemed larger than life, and the city's noise and energy were overwhelming. She felt out of place, but Mary reassured her, guiding her through the bustling streets until they reached her apartment. Mary's apartment was like a dream come true. It was a beautiful two-bedroom space furnished with plush sofas, sparkling lights, and decorations that looked expensive. There was even a TV, the kind Janet had only seen once or twice in her life. The kitchen was filled with all kinds of scenes, snacks, and the bathroom was so clean and bright it looked like something out of a magazine. Janet looked around the apartment wide-eyed and speechless. She couldn't help but wonder how Mary could afford all this. "What exactly do you do, Mary?" Janet finally asked, curious and a little nervous. But Mary just laughed it off. "You'll know soon enough. For now, just relax, Janet. You've come a long way. Enjoy yourself," she said, handing her a drink. "Don't worry, I'll make sure you're taken care of. You're like a sister to me." Janet tried to settle in, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Every time she asked Mary about her work, Mary would change the subject or tell her not to worry. "Just rest for now," Mary would say. "I'll introduce you to everything soon enough."
Thank you so much for watching this intense and gripping story on African Tales Stories. Your support means everything to us. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments section. Hey, we'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments section below. Don't forget to share these stories so that more people can watch and learn. Until next time, stay tuned for more captivating African tale stories. Bye, guys.